What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. Hey everybody, I want to give a big shout out to a new sponsor of the Golf 360 podcast, and that's Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms and their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model that's also often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns and little attention. At Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts, not just advisors, who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Call Affinity Wealth today for a no-cost consultation with one of their experts at 724-754-8200. Again, that's 724-754-8200. Or you can also check them out on the web at www.affinitywealthmg.com. That's AFFINITYWEALTHMG.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized Bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. Welcome, golfers, choppers, hackers of all ages, to another edition of the Golf 360 podcast. Have a very, very cool guest for you today. She's not going to teach you how to hit the ball better. She's not going to teach you how to manage your game any better. But what she is going to teach you is how to market and promote the number one product that you will ever have, which is yourself. It doesn't matter if you're a professional golfer looking to acquire sponsorships, if you are in the club side of the business looking to advance your career, you're in the business world looking to sell a product. She is an expert in all of those things, and it's going to help make you more successful. Her name is Karen Moraghan, and she is the president of Hunter Public Relations and Special Events, which focuses now on hospitality and golf marketing strategy. She has been in and around the golf industry since the early 80s, where she started her career as the vice president of marketing for the Pebble Beach Company, where she spearheaded global marketing campaigns for the Lodge at Pebble Beach Golf Links, the Inn and Links at Spanish Bay, Spyglass Hill and Del Monte golf courses, and the 17-mile drive. She is also one of golf industry's leading media relations specialists, where she has helped to position and open properties including 12 different hotels and 63 golf courses around the country since starting her career. And she has put together some of the nation's most momentous special events, including the reunion of U.S. Open champions at the 100th U.S. Open at Pebble Beach in 2000, which was followed the next morning by the Payne Stewart Memorial on the 18th green at the famed Pebble Beach Golf Links. And then she did that same reunion again at the 2013 U.S. Open at Marion. So if you are looking to understand and learn and improve yourself and how to market yourself, how to utilize PR, and how to utilize media relations in a social media-driven world, then Karen and this interview today is definitely somebody you're going to want to listen to. Again, she is an expert at it. She has been extremely successful, and she is sought out, as you've heard from her brief bio, by some of the most prestigious and successful golfing entities around the country. So please sit back, relax, and give a very big Golf 360 welcome to my guest today, Karen Moraghan. All right, Karen Moraghan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pete.
How's your game lately?
Well, being sheltered at home, I've actually played twice, which is probably 2 more rounds than last year. But you know what? I go out, Tim will call or he'll text, and I'll take 3 clubs, walk down the street and hop out there. And I always, you know what? We have fun. It's a good way to just appreciate where we live and get out there and practice. Mm-hmm. I'm strong, so I can hit it pretty far, but I have no finesse whatsoever. No short game, no green reading. I know. But I tell him I look good. He cracks up because I'll get my little golf outfits all ready. And we represent some clothing lines and some apparel and footwear and headwear. So I'll have it all ready. He goes, "Oh, I guess you want to go out and play today." And he says, "I see your outfit's ready."
And for any of you who might be wondering, yes, Karen is the better half of Tim Moraghan, who was a guest on the show not long ago. Do you guys work together at all? Being both in the industry.
We always say that he's inside the ropes, right? Mm-hmm. He understands the turf and the course setup and the nuances of the game. I'm outside the ropes. I market the game or the products that make the game, or the people who design the courses, or the resorts where people go to play, or the real estate when people want a golf community. We market. So Karen's outside the ropes, Tim's inside the ropes, and, mm-hmm. But we counsel each other. We get opinions. We know so many of the same people revolving for decades in golf circles, but it's kind of a rarity. The fact I don't play that often, mm-hmm. mainly because of time. And this period of COVID has been interesting because I'm usually on the road 200 days a year, and we're kind of laughing because this is the longest in our 27 years of marriage we've been together. Someone said, "Is that a good thing?" I said, "Well, of course it's a good thing. I've been grounded, and my clients are all over, but getting on an airplane right now, Mexico's 3 weeks behind us. California seems to be coming out of it okay, but now there's spikes in Arizona and Florida where we have other clients, so we're mm-hmm. just having to be careful." And it's interesting because I deal primarily with media, so I've got a group of them who, wherever you want to go, Karen, whenever you're ready, I'm there with you. I'll jump on the plane. And others, they're not interested yet. It's like politics. I've got people at opposite ends of the spectrum with wanderlust that doesn't quit, and others who are just way too cautious right now to even dare to invite on a trip. So right now, my first scheduled trip anywhere for a client is November to Los Cabos. So I'm sure other things will materialize.
Right, yeah.
I'm counting on it.
Everything will pick up. And once it picks up nationwide, I think it'll go very quickly. Yeah. Kind of like South Carolina did when it opened early.
Oh, yeah.
So you have Hunter Public Relations, right, and special events. Mm-hmm. But just to kind of, everybody hears public relations and they hear PR and they hear these things. But could you just explain that, or maybe give a definition or an explanation so that sure. everybody has a clear understanding of what it is you do? Because I think it's lost, right?
Right. I think some people think of public relations as a concierge at a hotel or something mm-hmm. like that. And probably more accurately these days, I call it media relations, which somewhat what it sounds. You're interacting with and having relationships with media or these days social media or influencers. All of them are people who communicate messages outbound to the outside world. So, my job is to create content, put it in their hands, and then let them tell the stories of our clients, be it a golf shoe or a golf course architect or a resort. Because now there's a phrase, content is king. Mm-hmm. The world is just at your fingertips, right? You can Google anything at any time. Sometimes I don't know if you ever, when you Google, you look and it says, there are 300 million matches to this term that you just looked up, and that just does it in milliseconds. Well, think about trying to penetrate that clutter with a message, for example, Sea Pines Resort. Today we put out a press release about an invitational they're having this fall. It's a 2-person amateur team event. And right away we got 5 or 6 guys said, thanks for this, I'll plug it in, I'll put it in my next column. But think about all the information that's out there about every golf tournament, every rooms package, every shoe, every new widget or whatever. So media relations is building those relationships, getting to the right people who can then put it out even further to the consumer.
Yeah, because in today's world, everybody's bombarded.
Oh, totally.
I mean, email, mm-hmm. How many junk emails does everybody get? And so you help your clients at whatever facet of the industry they're in.
Right.
Able to get their message in front of somebody.
Right, but also be able to deliver it clearly, concisely, because people don't have bandwidth for, people are in...
No, it's a very noisy world.
Right, and they're in a 140-character world, like a tweet, right? I mean, people don't have the time to read long-form journalism, very rarely. It's the rarity now. You get some magazines that'll run a 2,500 or 5,000 word article. You don't see that very often anymore. It's short bites. It's the USA Today mentality we said 20 years ago, right? Just the little articles, big pictures, little captions, right?
Right.
But the world is visual. And so helping the clients define their message, being really sensitive and not tone deaf to what's going on. I mean, in April and May of this year, we weren't going to be putting out a lot of stuff. You had a country in crisis with a healthcare scare and a situation. So, helping our clients manage the pacing and the cadence of their messages is really important. And then using all the tools. I always say that I have this quiver and I have all these different arrows. And, it might be to engage with an influencer and ask him to wear a certain pair of shoes or do a video of the box opening or something like that for Instagram, or it might be getting to a writer for golf.com and giving a menu item from links at Sea Pines, or it might be talking to an architecture writer tomorrow. For example, I've got 5 golf communities that have a lot of space, and right now space is the next frontier of where people want, they're moving out of vertical, going into these places where they can socially distance. Right. So I've got 5 clients that fit that. So I'm trying to find the right outlets for each one. It's kind of like a chessboard every day. What makes the most sense for which client, or trying to forge relationships. Because my sister, who's my business partner and based in California, and I have been doing this for so long, we have a lot of relationships. And that's really our strong suit. Is everyone knows us as the golf girls. And 85% of our clients have something to do with golf. But trying to nurture those relationships over time. Now, years later, we've got new relationships and younger people coming in and different types of media to deal with. And so that, it makes it a challenge every day, and it's kind of fun.
How do you stay on top of the changing media dynamic in the world? Because it does seem to change very quickly.
It's a good question. And it's hard because... let's say there's people of a certain age who will email or, God forbid, pick up a phone and we have conversations. And actually, during this past couple months, I've picked up the phone a lot. I've scheduled meetings, phone meetings with a lot of the media. And, it's more of a human thing, to know.
Human interaction.
Well,
right?
But I think a lot of people are lonely. A lot of people are scared. I mean, my media guys, too. They're not, a lot of them are freelancers. They don't know when the next assignment's coming. They don't know when they're going to get out on the road again. if they had sponsors for certain programs, like a radio show host, some of that dried up. So just being able to have kind of a grounded conversation and talk about future is part of the relationship. So there's those guys. They'll email, they'll talk on the phone. Then there's a whole set that they only like to text. So now I'm having to be sensitive again to who wants their texts going off at all hours of night and day. And,
Right.
I find there's a certain group that does that. And then there's some who just don't answer anything. I mean, frankly, it's some of the younger ones. They don't want to be pitched. They don't want to have, they'll let you know when they want something. So, what I've been doing is either following them on social or watching the types of things they'll post about or what seems to engage them. Are they an influencer or social media personality who likes to follow the tour? Is that what really floats their boat? Or is it someone who's really likes luxury and experiential type content? So trying to funnel it into the right channels is always important. And that's what takes the time. Even I've got a client that has a wonderful fire prevention program. They're out in California, and they've managed their property so they've never had a fire on the property, and trying to find the right reporter at the LA Times who covers fire. It takes a little doing to figure that out, and then you figure it out via Twitter or the feed, and it's that's what makes my job different every single day.
By that, do you mean that the turnover of people who used to contact, that turnover might be much
There's
faster
a lot of
nowadays?
that. The outlets are folding. That's another scary thing. Or they're all going digital. So, for example, during this period in San Diego, 3 major publications closed. They just couldn't float. Even in the golf world, we've seen compression. But interestingly, we've seen the 2 or 3 new magazines that have appeared. One is called Golfer's Journal, which is very long form, but when you open it up, you can see it's subsidized by a bank and Linksole and some other partners, but beautifully produced. It comes out quarterly. It's not inexpensive, but it's just beautiful cover, beautiful graphics. And they've just come out with a digital edition, something new and different. But last week, of all things, another one called McKellar. I don't know if you've seen that. That's out of Canada. It's really the purists, a lot of the guys who love that golf course architecture and stories. And there was a third one called, and I think it was a one-time only. It was something 18, I can't remember. And then there's a beautiful new one out of New Zealand called Caddies Magazine. So, that's just when you think print's dying, then something shows up in your mailbox.
Yeah, something else is going to take its place.
But then you look at some of the major ones, and they're awfully thin right now.
One of the, when people always ask, well, who do you have coming on, or, who's next? And I say, well, I give them your name, and we talk about what you do, and they say, well, I know she's tied into golf, but how does that benefit a golfer that might be listening? And I said, well, you're supposed to be selling yourself every day or marketing yourself every day, aren't you? And
Sure.
I don't really think people grasp that idea until they have to go to an interview.
Right.
And in today's world, as you just mentioned, the turnover, people probably going to have to do more interviews.
Yeah. In fact, I had a client who had some openings, and she had 6 candidates, and I said, how'd it go? And she said, it went really well. She said, but they were all so qualified, which tells you about, in the current state of unemployment, she's getting overqualified people for maybe some lower level positions. But be it a golf professional or a golfer who owns a small business, be it an insurance agency or a boutique, we all need to market to keep the pipeline full, right?
Right.
When I think of marketing, I don't think of the grocery store, but I think of an umbrella, and on the umbrella there's spokes, and on those spokes you have media relations, which we just spoke about.
Right.
You have special events, which again is another tool in my quiver.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
You
too.
have community relations, which is right there where where you revolve, right? I revolve in the golf community, so I donate my time for a cause in golf. I also rotate in my university, my alumni community, and then locally I have a charity that I donate my time to. But community relations grounds you, and it gives you a sense of purpose where you are, right? So you've got media relations, special events, community relations, and then another prong of the marketing umbrella would be advertising, which is typically a paid exchange. So you can control your message. You're paying for that right. So be it in one of our local magazines or on a radio broadcast or on a television, that's your other opportunity. And then, there's probably now with social media and influencers, just kind of this, maybe another prong of that fits into a marketing strategy. So, and probably you would put digital under the advertising. So say if you're a real estate agent, what is your plan to reach your targets? Is it reaching people before they get here who are coming from the Midwest, which we know is a known feeder market to Hilton Head? Someone told me today that Ohio is just an adjunct state to Hilton Head.
Ohio's it used to be called the upstate of South Carolina.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And then, are you going to reach them after they get here? Are they going to read? Are you going to go on a menu? Are you going to go on a radio broadcast on the way down? Are you going to go in a golf magazine? It's all these decisions, and each one has a price tag attached. And then once you figure out, here's my marketing budget, here's who I'm trying to reach, now how am I going to get there? Luckily today, there's so many metrics and so much data on the back end. I'm helping a client do a website right now, and I was just amazed by, on the subscribe button, we can tell exactly where they're coming from and how long they stayed there, and where they went, what page they stayed on for the most time, and data, right?
Well, and you talk about advertising and the sponsorship on this podcast is when someone inquires, the hosting site, I have a printout and I send it to them, I can show what parts of the country, what parts of the world, who's tuning in. Obviously, I think they use gender and age and
sure.
all the criteria. So it helps them identify, okay, if I sponsor on this show or pay for advertising, is it going to reach the people I want it to reach, and how many?
Right.
It's not just, okay, if it's in a magazine or newspaper, not to knock those mediums, but you don't know who's seeing it or who's not.
Or how many times, right?
How many times.
I had recently an article appear on Forbes.com, and if you do the arithmetic and figure out how many eyeballs, it made it sound like $500,000 worth of advertising exposure. But then when I talked to the writer and really drilled down on the metrics he got, turned out it was really $16, which is a big difference to tell the client. Whoops, but you can drill down. I think also from it's a buyer's market on that advertising side right now. So if I'm a resort or I'm a shoe company or I'm a real estate community, and I am going to place advertising, say, in your magazine, which also has a digital companion and some e-blasts and blah, 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 you can get a lot of added value for the same investment you might have had, let's just say $1,000 to spend last year. This year, that $1,000 can go a lot further because people really need. We've had so many of the outlets where our clients are advertising say, hey, you can pay next year, just stay. I've had others where we'll just keep running it because we want to keep our radio show alive and make it look like our sponsors are still with us, even though we know they're having tough times. So, I told my sister, she's like, why are you spending all this time, volunteering for this national golf organization called Clubs Help? And I said, well, first of all, right now, a lot of our clients are a little slower than usual while we're waiting for travel and hospitality to come back. And I'm meeting all sorts of people on Zoom calls every day, and you know what? It's the right thing to do, and someday it could come back to me. But in the meantime, it's fine.
Yeah, you never know who you're going to meet. I had one friend, recently we were talking about something. He was going to go back to school, and I said, well, why don't you go find out who some of the best people are and what you want to learn. Take what you would spend in school and message them and say, look, I'll come work for you, be your assistant for free for, let's say, 2 years of what they would go back to get their master's degree in. And then you take that money they were going to pay in tuition and live off that, and they're going to get a better education from somebody who's out in the real world, and it's 1-to-1 more or less instead of 25 to 1?
Years ago, when I got out of school, a couple of years into the work, I thought, oh, I'll go get my MBA. And I applied at UCLA and Stanford and different places. I didn't get into the school I wanted to get into, so I thought, well, I'll keep working. Well, fast forward a long time, and I have a parallel interest in wellness, and I said to a friend's husband, I said, I'm thinking of going back and getting a business degree in public health policy that I can then transfer into my wellness interest and really try to, move on that. And he looked at me, he said, Karen, he says, you've run your own business for almost 30 years. He said, you know more than you're ever going to learn in a school. He says, you've made more contacts. You know so many people. He said, just take it and run. Don't worry about the schooling part. And I thought, well, I kind of like putting on a pair of jeans and a backpack and hanging out in La Jolla for 2 years. But if you don't think that's a good use of funds, okay. But I see your point. I mean, there's so much that you can learn practically. I had internships, all throughout college, and occasionally we'll take them out in the office in Carmel, but sometimes it's hard to direct other people and give them a meaningful experience. My sister got caught, doing an internship out in California, emptying coffee grounds and running errands, and it really soured her on the whole experience. It's got to be the right mentor.
Let me go back for a minute, because you had mentioned that the marketing plan, you had all the different spokes of the umbrella. Would that be something similar for an individual? So let's say if your average golfer is an insurance salesperson, or an assistant professional, or an instructor / coach who's maybe not, they're in the business and they're doing okay, but they want to become more well-known and things like that. Do the fundamentals of what you would use for a business still apply for the individual? Absolutely.
I've actually sat down with young professionals before who either have aspired to go to the next level or had an aspiration to be on a top 100 list, or to go to the next level of club, or wanted to be more known for a certain facet, be it the mental coaching or the teaching. And just like any business, you need to have kind of a plan. Right. I don't know if it has to involve paid advertising, a full-blown marketing plan, but you need to be very directed. Otherwise, you're just going to get absorbed into those thousands and thousands of golf pros that are out there. I mean, there are organizations like the Proponent Group, which Lauren Anderson started, that help equip young pros with tools that can build their business. And he's been tremendous. The information he's sent out during COVID.
He's coming on. I got to get
he's
back
the
in
best.
Touch with him.
Yeah,
He's a great guy.
And his wife is a top 100 teacher, Cheryl, who works for Mike Bender. She's amazing too. But the information, Lauren's got such a business mind. He's been able to. I've used a lot of his stuff. I'm still on his mailing list from when we launched Golf Channel Academy together. The PPP information and helping his pros that are in the Proponent Group stable make sure they're finding the right programs to fund themselves during this time, making sure they fill out the paperwork properly, and then also the paperwork that proves you spent the money appropriately. But I'll give you an example. I sat down with a young man who had he was part of an academy at a club in New Jersey, and he had some goals of, kind of creating his own brand. Right. And we talked a lot about, okay, if you're a pro and you have a stable of students, you need to, first of all, know them well so that can any of them expand your network? So there's referral is a form of marketing. Then what can he do to be visible and active starting? It's like a little circle. Start locally. Is it the New Jersey section? Was it the region? How could he donate his time? Does he get involved in the fundraising tournaments? How can he give back? Is it through the first tee? Is it through Special Olympics? I mean, there's many ways to network. And like we talked about before, community relations within the golf community, within your local. Can he author articles? I mean, like we talked about content earlier.
Right.
The sky's the limit. You write about the mental game or approaches to putting, the short game or finesse around the greens or, things like that, where you have an authored article with your own byline. The other thing on these ratings and this whole top 100, part of our business is to help position our clients in these ratings. And it's a game and it's political, but there are strategies. One thing we say, we never can guarantee a rating, but we can help equip you with the right information to go in the right direction. If you're not in the top 100 now, say of a golf course, chances are we're not going to get you there.
Right.
But if you're in the top 100, we can help you maybe not fall out, or we can help you maintain your visibility. Same with a young man or woman who's a golf professional and wants to get into that top 100. There are sub-lists by state. Then there are lists to get you nationally. You need your members to support. You need a body of work. Here's my 5 authored articles. Here's my photo shoot from Golf Georgia. Here's when I, went on Pete Popovich's podcast. And you provide an arsenal of, here's the things I've done to promote the game, to go back and dedicate some time to the community. Here's maybe a aspiring collegiate or professional golfer that I've helped work on their game. All of a sudden, you're starting to roll, right? Your reputation is going.
In looking back to when I was 20-something and wanting to progress and things like that, you think you have it all figured out at certain points, right?
Right.
I think and the more we learn, the more we realize it's a never-ending learning curve / process. And Dr. Brett McCabe, works with a lot of tour pros, he had a post today, and we had a little back and forth. I love the doc, and one of the things he asked was, "Are you still?" I think it was for coaches. Are you still coaching? And what was the reason? Or is it the same reason now that you coach that you did when you got in? And and then what have you learned? And I think one of the things I said was that, or the thing that worries me most is that I've always missed something on a student that it could be small, and it was an oversight, and it held him back. That keeps me up at night. And the other was the realization that you're not ever going to know it all. Right?
No.
but when you're young, you think you do.
I was going to say, and think of all the other tools available with social. I mean, I've heard of golf pros who have gotten 50-60% of their business, they do it online now and video. There's a guy out in California who had been at Poppy Hills and then formed his own institute that we had worked with there, and he's got a huge business all through these students all over the world where they send the clips. And even I go back years, but when I worked for Pebble Beach Resorts, Laird Small had a TV show every week called Small Tips. And it was for years he did this show, and it was just little 1-minute segments that now you would put on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
But there was no such thing as YouTube back then. And Laird's been a top 100 instructor for a long time.
Right.
And, but those were the rudimentary early day things. Now, he wouldn't touch social media with a 10-foot pole, I bet. But nowadays, you see personalities develop and evolve because I always say, gosh, if I had more time every day, I'd love to just hang out on social media and weigh in and talk about things and post pretty pictures. But, I only have so much bandwidth. And I have my own personal channels, and then we have the Hunter Public Relations channels. And I have an age-appropriate person helping me with the Hunter PR stuff just to make sure every other day we've got something out there and we're promoting what we do and what our clients do. But on my own, I just have fun with just weird pictures, the raccoon that's been knocking my bird bath over at night, or, the little skink that runs around, I'll just take pictures, but it's like scrapbooking, right?
Right.
For me, but it's fun. And what's really fun is to try to grow your following. And there's a lot of tricks and things that, as a marketing tool for a young professional, as a business builder. Because, I think I occasionally will write for some of the local magazines, and if I do something on technology or the teaching, I call on people I know or who I've heard of or I've worked with. I call on you for something about putting.
Right.
I'll call Tim Cook about technology. I'll call Dana Rader. But how can I expand my scope and breadth of who I know, unless I've read about them or heard about them, right? And it's kind of a vicious cycle. So if you're a young person, you got to kind of get out of that rut and say, okay, how am I going to make myself known to someone like a Karen or another writer who's constantly writing about, how to improve your golf game, or this is a great tip, or
and looking back again, is the things that you have to do to market yourself and become better and make, as you said, a little chest of accomplishments. Here's articles and here's videos. You actually learn a lot because you might know it in your head, but to convey it is a completely different thing.
Well, and it's hardest to do it for yourself. Trust me. I mean, I have made a living putting my clients out front and center. So somebody offered today to have me write an article for a club manager's newsletter. And he said, send your photo and a little bio. And I'm like, ooh. I said, that's a foreign concept. I'm usually pushing my clients. But hey, on the other hand, it's a nice opportunity. And
right.
It's also a little bit of the squeaky wheel syndrome, where if you're calling an editor from a magazine with an idea, and you don't hear from them, that's not a surprise, right? But if you continue to call or drop a package of information off at one of the magazines, or come up with some good story ideas and have them carefully presented cohesively and say, hey, I've got 5 golf story ideas for you for 2021 for some issues of Hilton Head magazine. Would you consider them? It's amazing how this works. I did a story, it's going to run in a month or so, on archaeological digs happening on Hilton Head. Mm-hmm. And the editor sent it to me, and he handed me a pile of folders, and he said, here, can you work this out? This woman's been asking me to write a story about it. Well, she was so organized, so thorough. She practically wrote it. I mean, all the information was right there. And now they're going to get a multi-page story. But she was persistent in a good way, because it made me, as the writer, my job very easy. But it's like a Tim or a Dana. They were very accommodating, did it on the phone. I needed a picture, sent them the issues, boom, done. And so when it's not a one, it's going to be a one-way street until you build the relationship. Then once you have the relationship, then I know I can call on Tim over here.
And it takes time. I don't think people today understand. And today's get it at a snap of a finger. The Amazon, the 2-day delivery and binge watching. It's patience is a lost virtue.
Yeah, and going back to the clutter and the content, and so many people out there. I mean, I know charities actually get really frustrated because they all have such, there's so many good charities around here, right? And so much purpose and so many hands raised for fundraising. I mean, look at with the tournament this year being canceled and then rescheduled without spectators. Think of the revenues that didn't come into the coffers. Right. So they really had to get creative how they were going to maintain this pipeline into the community to help fund these charities. And yet I know so many charities that want some coverage and they want people to be aware of their story and the good works they do. And it's cluttered. I mean, you can't run stories about every charity every day. There's just not enough pages or content. And
not enough people are going to read it.
No. And, it's personality driven in many ways. Let's say, is it, I think Stan Smith is with the Boys and Girls Club on Hilton Head. He's been very involved. Well, you put a celeb behind anything. We know athletes who put themselves behind certain charities, and then that just raises their profile that much more. Mm-hmm. Working with celebrities is a little tricky, though, right?
Right.
Kristen and I, my sister, had an event one year, and it was back in Pebble Beach, and it was the Jack Lemmon Invitational, and it was raising money for the Ansel Adams Center for Photography. Well, guess what? 11th hour, Jack couldn't come. Ooh. Well, hello. He sent his son, Chris, but
not quite the same.
Not quite the same. So I learned long ago, if you get them, that's great. I mean, and once you get them, you have to manage them. So that's a little bit the trickier side of things.
What have you noticed in changes in the marketing and public relations since COVID? How has it changed?
Well,
has it become You touched on it a little bit, but has it become more? Are people working more and pushing out more things because now they're, let's say, at home and have nothing else to do but work?
I think just like the media who I mentioned, where some are eager and out there and working, and others are just almost frozen, not knowing what to do. I'm finding people are trying to be sensitive, right? There was an early barrage of, these shows of sensitivity, like, for example, my airline of choice is United. I've flown over 2 million miles on United, and I have a high status on United, but that all went away when I've been grounded, right, since March 12th. And early on, they made a decision that all their 1K flyers, they're going to give us till January of 22 to maintain our status. And then this barrage of other things. We're going to extend your President's Club access. We're going to, they're trying to show sensitivity to their frequent flyers without saying, come on, get on a plane. Right. Because right now, for example, you can't get from here to the New York metropolitan area directly on United. They take you to Chicago or Washington, D.C., because we're a small market. And it's like that. I'm trying to get my 2 nephews to come visit. You can't get them out of Monterey in the morning. I mean, we got to either drive them to San Francisco, fly them to Dulles, boom, 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 boom. It's just, so what I'm finding is companies are trying to be sensitive, but they still want to be in your mind and communicate. Then you throw some of the racial tension on top of it. And now, after all the COVID messaging and all these things about sanitation and caring for your health and all this social distancing, now we're getting their platforms as far as equality. So you've got all these messages pouring out from corporate entities, be it, the shoe companies or Banana Republic or United Airlines. I mean, it's just this, rather than retail and selling messages, they're giving you their stands on things, and they're pivoting a little on different things. I mean, there have been several firings of major executives at either major media or companies because of past things. I read today that Tina Fey has asked that 4 episodes of 30 Rock be taken out of circulation because there was some inappropriate racial references. So she's gone to all the different platforms that air that show. I mean, almost hypersensitivity. So any messages from a marketing of a resort or an experience are now kind of getting really pushed down in the pecking order because you've got so much stuff going on. And frankly, I don't think it's going to get better because we're in an election year.
Right.
Here in Hilton Head, we're in hurricane season, predicted to be a bad one, but who knows?
Fingers crossed.
I know. So yeah. So I'm like the little engine that could. I'm just going to keep promoting and marketing, but sensitively, for the clients, and know that, for example, our golf course architect client, probably the guys aren't going to be traveling all over the world right now to the courses in Vietnam or Singapore or Ecuador where we have projects. That's just going to have to be done on Zoom and WebEx and go to meetings. And then people probably aren't buying $495 golf shoes right now. They're probably being a little more sensitive. But on this other hand, clubs we represent are still celebrating their milestone anniversaries, and we've still got planning underway, but we're planning events in a fashion that will keep people a little more separated. We're not planning a banquet for 400 people in a ballroom with 12 at a table. So creative.
Well, that kind of gets into your events, which was it's a good lead in.
Oh, okay.
And that was one of your
Weren't
things.
I helpful? I was so helpful with that,
yes.
wasn't I?
I mean, I got a little list here of some of the events that you organized. If I could just go over some of the more interesting and accomplished one. I mean, in 2000, you had the reunion of U.S. Open champions at the 100th U.S. Open, Pebble Beach.
Yeah, my old stomping grounds.
And you and then you organized the Payne Stewart Memorial Services the next day, and then again in 2013, you did the return of the U.S. Open champions, this time at Marion. 125th anniversary of Golf in America on behalf of St. Andrews Golf Club. 10th anniversary of the first tee of Philadelphia with former President George W. Bush.
Yes.
You're associated with the Nicholas Company, Robert Trent Jones Architects, a Headwear Club Pro, private clubs, Baltusrol, Desert Mountain Resorts, the Wind Club in Las Vegas.
Hey, what happens in Vegas, baby?
Yeah, we won't go there.
We're not going there.
AT&T Pro-Am, the Heritage here in Hilton Head, RBC Heritage, the Safeway Open. So with all these events and things that you do, because you said it's a spoke, can you speak to how events can be leveraged as part of a marketing strategy?
Sure, and let's maybe start with something as simple as a Friday night gallery walk in Carmel, where a winery or a distillery, more appropriately here, because there seems to be a growing number of them,
right?
Becomes a partner with a gallery, and all the shops and things are open. Let's say in downtown Bluffton, and people get to wander around, do some tasting, maybe have some kind of special drawing, or you get to meet the artists. It's an event. You're creating a reason for people to come out, maybe make a late dinner reservation, maybe learn about a new kind of rum that they never knew was produced locally. Mm-hmm. See that maybe there's a price point in the gallery that you actually could afford and say, ooh, I'd like this. You're creating an experience. And I think these days people want to have experiences. It's not enough necessarily to just say go to a concert and watch the performer. You see all these other promotions where meet the artist after, or go meet Lady Gaga in the green room, and you get this premium seat, and you get a special release of the new album, and you get to do a meet and greet. There's people seem to want more. Even tournaments, you look at all the, we've done lots and lots of golf tournaments over the years, not only running media centers, but running U.S. Opens and other types of fundraising.
You've opened 68 golf courses?
60, yeah. We'll have 69 is a renovation at Baltusrol that will open next May. But, lots from renovations and are much more common now. But back in the early 2000s when they were overbuilding golf courses. Mm-hmm. I remember one year we did 7 new courses alone, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But
so if there's a new development, let's say there's a golf development in XYZ town, USA, and they call you in to do an event, that event is something that's in addition to all the things that, let's say, the development team or the whoever owns the development is. You're supplementing what they do with some extracurricular things in the surrounding community, or what else do you do? Okay, both.
So say there's a brand new real estate community that's opening, and it happens to have golf. Mm-hmm. Typically, we'll get called in when the word golf, 4-letter word, is used, because we're known for being in golf. But because my background had a lot of hospitality in it, having worked for Pebble Beach Resorts and Sheraton Hotels, we know that side of it too. And now we have a lot of communities. But we would become part of a marketing team. So sales is also part of marketing in that they will use these tools. They'll use the things we discussed earlier, media relations, digital, social, to raise a profile. So let's just say, let me give you a good example. At Reynolds Lake Oconee, they have a new community opening. It's 10-acre lots. They're estates called homesteads. So here you have an established community already, a Ritz-Carlton hotel, 6 golf courses, fitness center, but they need to position homesteads as different. It's, it's more space, right? It's
more private.
More private. And they're finding there's an appetite for it right now. We might come in to make sure we're continuing to keep Reynolds' golf profile high, so that's one of the assets. People can live there, but they will have access to these golf courses as well as the sporting grounds. So we'll make sure we get articles in the right places, be it Cigar Aficionado or the Atlanta Business Journal or Golf Magazine. There's, the the buyers who play golf don't necessarily just read golf magazines. They're reading lots and
Lifestyle,
lots of
a lot of lifestyle magazines.
And right now there's this focus on family. So people, want to know what other activities are there, or there could be a spouse who doesn't play golf, or that just they don't have time to play golf. So we would come in and work with a team that might be an ad agency, and we would say take on the golf part, or we would talk about lifestyle and just help promote it, raise the profile of more of the amenities. We don't do sales and we don't do sponsorship. Those are two things that's not in our DNA. We stick in our lane because we know we're good at what we do. And that probably wasn't as good an explanation as I could have given you.
Let's use the Heritage, for example. So I'm sure you had helped them with events outside of the tournament itself. So if the tournament's the marquee and now you have satellite events,
right?
What would be an example of an event that?
That Pebble Beach might be a better example for me.
Pebble.
So for example, we had a real estate community there that very high end, but wanted to be part of what was happening in Pebble Beach that week. So they bought a package where they had access to some premium hospitality. So they had a venue called Clint's Saloon that was up on the third hole at Pebble, where you had premium access. They could bring prospects in, open bar, different types of food stuff. And, they had paid a premium for that privilege. Then they also got through it some social media attention from the tournament. There were hashtags developed that could tie the two together. It's almost in these cases like you want to rub shoulders with and be, if the circus comes to town or the event comes to town, you want to be part of it. You don't want to be, waiting on the sidelines hoping to have, you have to be proactive to make yourself a part of it. So, for example, there are corporations who sponsor, like AT&T or RBC, who pay millions of dollars to fund the purse that pays the players when the tournament comes to town. But you have, if you look on the sponsor boards, all the sub-sponsors from, on this one, for example, RBC was the big one, but you have presented by Boeing. You have the Hilton Head Airport and the Savannah Airport. You've got banks. You've got, all sorts of restaurant groups, insurance companies, all the way down. And there's different benefits. But, in some cases, we've helped put together packages. What do I get for my $50,000?
So would an example be, let's say one of the restaurant groups would say, okay, for our $50,000, what do we get? And then you would put together maybe a tasting at each restaurant of some type of meal that they specialize in.
Because what they want, is to separate themselves from the clutter, right?
Right.
And they want name recognition, and they want people to think of them as community-minded, charitable-minded. We are here supporting the Heritage, which in turn supports all these local charities. We are a good community citizen. But here's a voucher, or here's a passport. Come to our 5 restaurants, show your ticket stub, whatever it is that might happen. They can use it on their social, to promote their affinity and their relationship with. I'm sure there's a certain number of tickets in the package. There might be some golf opportunities and pro-ams, a certain number of slots. I know for years we did a tournament with the National Restaurant Association at Pebble Beach to raise money for their education foundation. And we had all sorts of fun because we had major food companies and restaurants as partners. I remember one year on the practice putting green, we created this whole obstacle course using cans from Del Monte Foods and boxes of cereal from Quaker Oats, and you had to putt through this and go, just for fun, but it was exposure. And one of the companies had Andy North as their spokesperson. So they, had him out there, kind of commentating the putting contest. There he goes through the 2 tomato cans, and it's a dog leg left over the Captain Crunch box, and that kind of thing. So you can have fun with it. I mean, there's obviously multi-levels of sponsorship and involvement in golf and all sorts of other arenas. I mean, golf is so charitable. And that was when I had a client call and he said, hey, would you volunteer your time for this new organization called Clubs Help? I said, sure. And so I thought I was going to write a press release, and 2 months later, not only have we grown from one club to 400 clubs, but we've just gotten a major financial donation, and we're about to launch an event. And I mean, I think it's going to be, an ongoing project for us that will continue to grow and build, because what we learned was, yes, there were frontline responders, but the nature of the charity is that a golf club in New Jersey found out that the hospital in its neighborhood needed masks and hydration for the frontline workers during the first onslaught of COVID. And the club, put a call out to its members, and literally they figured out where to go. They delivered, in an organized fashion to the club or to the hospital what they needed. Well, Ernie L's manager saw it on Fox and Friends one morning, called up and said, hey, this is a great idea, but let's think beyond one club. And so Club Corps signed up, Arcus Golf signed up, and there are now, as I said, almost 400. And not only are they pairing with hospitals as COVID's moved and the pandemic has eased, and then there are hotspots, food banks. I mean, there's so many kids right now who are not in school. There's no way to feed them. Nursing homes, first responders, some of the fire and police who are just out there. So we had 5 clubs in Florida. Every day they took a different day, and they delivered 230 meals each day.
That's
so
awesome.
It was Addison Reserve, and then this club to a hospital to feed the frontline workers. Another club in Michigan delivered Easter lilies as the nurses and doctors were getting off shift on Easter Sunday. Each one was handed an Easter lily. So, I mean, golf is so generous when if you start looking at the billions of dollars that are raised. So I'm happy to be involved in that. I think it's going to be a good long-term thing.
What is it that you see that most businesses or facilities or individuals are lacking of the various aspects of the spokes to the umbrella? Is it some are really good in something and they're just completely horrendous in another or lacking, or is it? Do you see across the golf industry that commonalities, or is it just a wide array?
Well, I think listening is at the core of a good marketing strategy, and listening to your customer, listening to what people want, listening to what's happening in the world, and then figuring out where do you fit and how can you do what you do well given the bigger picture, right?
Right.
So if you're tone deaf to what's going on and circumstantially, or for example, right now people may not want their kids to be doing indoor activities. They might want them outside, right? So that would be a good opportunity for an instructor to figure out, okay, wait a minute. Kids need to get out there and get fresh air and get tired. And, they've been cooped up and they've been homeschooled, and now it's vacation, and now what are we going to do? So is that an opportunity? How can I leverage this without being greedy because of the time we're all in? And then what's my message? Is my message, come take golf lessons? No, it's beyond golf lessons. It's, create a place for kids to come that's safe and socially distanced and learn something and maybe discover something about themselves. I mean, there's so many fun ways to teach golf. I remember working with LPGA, USGA girls golf for years, and how they taught those girls, starting, 150 yards from the green, and the games they would play just to get in and out of bunkers, and just fun stuff with kids that, if you're creative, I mean, working with the instructors of that, it was just so much fun to see how creative they could be. And so it's messaging, right? Knowing your audience, but listening, what are the needs? And it's the same if you're a golf pro or you own a dress shop. I mean, you can't be bringing in $500 dresses when your local economy isn't going to be able to afford that type of thing. So it's really knowing your audience and then adapting.
Do you see a lot of either people or businesses who might advertise or market and the message that they're sending out is completely different than who and what that business represents.
Sometimes I do.
And you have to go in and say, look, you're trying to say that you're a very creative type business, but you're actually a very conservative type business,
right?
or vice
your,
versa.
Your advertising doesn't show it,
right? Or the message that you're giving is not what you think it is.
Well, and some people can't sometimes you can put your finger on something. It looks like quality or doesn't, or it looks dated and doesn't. But it's hard to explain an aesthetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's certain places around here where they're using fonts that are so dated that I can see it, but someone might not know what a font is or not care, right?
Right.
But there's certain aesthetics of things that have changed over time. But if you're trying to be hip and cool and with it and creative, and your stuff looks like it came out of the 1950s, then someone's going to be onto you real quick, right? And that's a tricky thing because styles change. I get something each day called Y Pulse, and it kind of gets in the head of millennials and Gen Z, and talks about trends and things. And there was one a couple weeks ago. There were some millennials were embracing some interesting things, and one was golf. Right now, because in this era of social distancing, the rules are relaxed, right? So it's a little more fun to play because you don't have to get the ball in the hole necessarily.
Right. You can get outside, you can do something, you have something to occupy your time.
You don't have to hit it out of the bunker, or if you do, you don't have to rake it, right? Just swish it over with your foot, right? And so, they were trying to connect the dots that millennials have discovered golf again. Well, I think it was a little bit of, hey, let me get outside, let me hang with my buddies and still be, properly socially distanced. But then one of the other things they said was millennials were embracing American cheese. It's like, okay,
where that one comes from.
I know exactly. But you look at these kind of trends and what's old is becoming new again. Like there's a big lashback on the fashion industry right now. And that's why secondhand stores and consignment stores and repurposing and rewearing things is so in right now. And the fashion industry's had to really take stock of the materials they use. I don't know if you've noticed there's quite a few products now. There's a line of men's shorts that are made from recycled plastic bottles, and they use that very liberally in all their ads. There's a line of shoes that are called Rothy's from the UK that I think it was Meghan Markle wore a pair under her second wedding dress, and they're made of plastic bottles, recycled, so they're very hip and very
good for the environment,
and they're also good
stuff.
for the environment. And you hear that a lot, and even in I've been sitting on a lot of webinars that the wellness industry has been putting on, and materials used in home building. As I said, the fabrics and the things made from recycling, there's just a lot of focus on kind of sensitivity toward Mother Earth and, not being so wasteful these days.
When you get brought in to work with an individual or a business, how long does it take you to research that entity and then determine what the cause of their problem is versus just a symptom?
Well, not everyone has problems. A lot of times they just have an opportunity, or they need experienced professionals to help guide them through a process. So let's just use a golf course opening, okay?
Right.
Long before Hunter PR comes on the scene, they've got an architect, they have a plan, they've realized as a club or a resort that they needed to renovate or they needed to change their golf course for any reasons. Either the infrastructure has deteriorated or the course is not up to today's modern equipment. It can't withstand the distance of the ball or how far the ball's going with the new equipment. So they say, okay, we need to renovate or rebuild. Then, let's just say 6 months into it, they say, okay, now we need to tell people that we're doing this if we've been closed, and we want to tell them in a big way. We want to, hire a firm to help us maybe get the course rated, or to get new members, or to get more play, or to sometimes just to feed egos. There's many reasons they do it. And so we come in and we assess, okay, what are those objectives? How grandly do you want to do it? Because some clubs are more private than others. They don't want media crawling around, but they want a ratings. Or they do want media around and they want big feature stories. Or they want to hire, the best photographers and drone pilots and really make a big splash. So we set up whatever the appropriate strategy is for, it could be very simple. It could be a ribbon cutting. It could be a fundraising event. It could be a media day. It could be, it takes many shapes and forms. So, for example, last fall we did the Wynn Las Vegas. They reopened after being closed for a period of time because they thought they were going to not have a golf course anymore. And then they changed their mind. So our objective there was put it back on the map, and you have 20 media slots. So we flew in 20 media. They got to play. They got to go to the sport, some betting thing. They went to the spa. One of them got a hot shave, and then poop, out of Vegas. And then, for the next several months, the articles rolled out, and then they had to close for COVID. So,
Right.
In my opinion, they probably are going to need to almost do a reintroduction again. We've come up with a few ideas for them that might relaunch it. They had a big program planned during the NFL draft, which was to have been in Vegas. And as we know, it took place in Roger Goodell's basement. So, that kind of went by the wayside.
Oops.
But a couple of years ago, we opened what's now called the TPC Densante Bay down in the islands of Loreto, Mexico.
Ooh, nice.
And so that was a little more challenging because there's one flight a day on Alaska Airlines to get there. And so we brought in 35 media, and you can't get from the East Coast down to Loreto in the same day. So we were gauging, we were getting flights, getting them to LAX, overnighting them, then getting them all with their passports the next morning onto the jet to get them to Mexico. And then, we had Reese Jones, the architect there, and we had the owners and whatnot. But this was in a very remote location in Mexico. So, the challenges there were we had a gorgeous golf course in a breathtaking setting in the islands of Loreto, which is a protected UNESCO site with 900 species of fish, one flight a day. Reese Jones is the architect, the TPC brand on the golf course. But, we had to tell the world that it was there. And how we did that was visually, because it's just stunning scenery. And so social media and drones and videos. And we did a Golf Channel episode and had the crew down for a couple days of filming, and it was, we just pulled out all the stops to make a name for that course quickly. But that was a large budget, right?
Right.
And there was some generosity on the part of ownership because they said, put this golf course on the map, make this a destination that golfers will want to go to. But we've also worked with public courses that are owned by municipalities, and they've been renovated, and we've had great success just being creative, trying different things, from bringing in the architects to having a bird release to simultaneous teeing off. I know my very first golf course we ever did was Robert Trent Jones Jr., Sandy Tatum, and Tom Watson. And
Oh, gee, that's a tough
which
group.
was that was the Links at Spanish Bay, and all three. We had this bagpiper out on the course, and the fog was rolling in typical Pebble Beach fashion, and it came up through the fog. And then we had, so you got those mournful cries of the bagpipe, and then the three designers teeing off, and, the media, and it was Pebble Beach. And the thing I remember most is at the end of the event, the architects, the PR person, the officials of the company. We had a nice dinner, and the guys were doing their cigar thing. And Tom says, "Can you ship my clubs home?" I'm thinking, oh my God, these are Tom Watson's clubs. And he's
Don't lose
asking me,
them.
don't lose them. And so RJ Harper, who was the head pro at Pebble at the time, who sadly has since passed away, he and I worked it out, got FedEx, shipped them. about 2 days later, I get a call. Karen, it's Mr. Watson's office. We can't find his clubs. Well, it's like, oh no, here we go. And sure enough, they were at a neighbor's or something. It was, they had been delivered. They just hadn't been delivered to the right place. But, you run across situations once in a while. We did that event for the first tee of Metropolitan New York, and we had President Clinton as the speaker that night. And he was by then a private citizen, and he was having, in quotes, private citizen meetings while he was waiting to go on to be the keynote. And it was in the Natural History Museum. They had this giant room where they had this whale. And so there's 500 people at tables and going through it. And we had Dan Hicks was our MC, and President Clinton had been there for hours having these meetings, and someone said, okay, 20 minutes. So tell the Secret Service, 20 minutes till he's on. And he comes back and he says, oh, he wants to wait a little longer. He's got someone else in there. I'm like, wait a minute, we have this schedule, this run a show, and it's like, this is the time he's on. And so I went up to tell the honoree who had actually got Mr. Clinton to be there that evening, and he gets up, he leaves. A few minutes later, in walks the president and does his thing. But in the meantime, Dan Hicks was doing a good tap dance, quickly segued to, we're going to do the auction now. Do I hear 10, 10? Do I hear 20, 20? Because you just do what you do,
You got to
right?
improvise, yeah.
Yeah. And, similarly, when we did the reunion of Open Champs at Pebble Beach, we had it at the Beach and Tennis Club, which is the building to the left of 17th hole at Pebble, where Tom Watson chipped in to win the 82 U.S. Open. So that night, it was my sister and I and all the past champs and their spouses. And after the dinner was done, the trophy was sitting there. And I'm like, oh, the trophy. Okay. So the USGA's trailer was locked by that time. So I put the trophy in the passenger seat and drive back down to the downtown to the hotel where I was staying. And the doorman kind of looks at me and I'm like, trophy, US Open. Go upstairs. I put it on the desk. Well, Tim was sleeping, but he woke up at about 3:00 to head out to the course to meet with the crew and to get the course ready. And he's like, is that the trophy? And I go, uh-huh. He goes, can I take it? I'm like, take the trophy? He goes, yeah, I want to share it with the crew and show them what they're working for. And I said, you need to have that trophy on the 18th green no later than 10 to 7, because we were doing Payne Stewart's memorial service at 7 o'clock, where we lined all the players up and they hit the balls into the ocean. So, of course, off he goes and takes the trophy, gives the little pep talk to the crew that morning, and this is what you're playing for, guys. And there were pictures taken that later appeared in Sports Illustrated of the crew in the bunker with the trophy, etc. But it's 10 to 7. There's no trophy. I'm like, where the heck is he? And all of a sudden I look down the 18th fairway, come right up the middle, riding in a cart is Tim, the superintendent, and the trophy. And I'm like, you just risked divorce, man, But we had the trophy there, and it was a very emotional service, as you might imagine, because Payne was the defending champ and wasn't there. And Tracy came, and it was, Pebble Beach and the players, and then off they went. And it was weird because after that, having the high of being with all the past champs, from Byron Nelson to Tracy Stewart the night before, and then the next day doing that memorial service for Payne, I can't remember anything else that whole week. It was just like, I think I was so emotionally wrought and spent that whatever happened, Tiger won, I think, by like a lot of strokes. But
set the record.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Something else happened that week, but I was just in a fog after that. So,
do you find that you get, or do you get much kickback as somebody brings you in, usually to help with something? So they're going from a position to where they are, and you're trying to get them to where they tell you they want to be, and there's that change to changed. They want to change, and then they have to get to the changed the past tense? Do you find that they listen very readily, or do you get pushback? And if you do get pushback, how do you navigate that?
Well, I like to use examples of what others have done. I try to be discreet and not name drop if I don't have to, but sometimes it's an effective tool. Mm-hmm. If I say, well, when we opened the Ritz-Carlton Dove Mountain, what worked successfully was, and that might get their attention. Or, so sometimes name dropping, but, it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning about relationships. And 95% of any business Hunter PR has ever gotten has been because of referral. I can count on one hand the number of RFPs we've answered because we're a small agency and we're very high touch. And either my sister or myself are the point of contact for our clients. We don't send them off to junior executives or someone who, has only been working for a year or two. I mean, we have a support staff and we have a great team, but it's the two owners who are the people who interact with the client. So that's the first thing. So we've been chosen to work because of a referral. Somebody has trusted someone else's advice. And then when we start the project, we try to create a relationship. We have fun. I mean, I've done this too long. I say, I'm not going to work with people I don't want to work with anymore. I don't have to. I don't need to. I don't want to. And if I'm unhappy, normally they're not going to be happy. Mm-hmm. So, trying to get that good kind of cadence going from the beginning and understanding one another. And I'm not going to make, let's just say, an average product, golf course, shoe, headwear, whatever, they're not going to ascend to new heights if they can't back it up, right? I'm not a magician. I'm a practitioner of a craft of public relations and media relations. Mm-hmm. So, we need to create a strategy that's fitting and appropriate and fits within the budget, but is always geared toward the goal, right? So if it's a measurable goal, we want to have 10 new members a quarter, or we want to sell this much real estate, or we want to be in Golf Digest, Golf Magazine, Cigar Aficionado, and Golf Channel. How can we make that happen? What's going to be, is it, building a Reese Jones course on the side of a cliff in Loreto, Mexico? Or is it, rolling out, the bells and the whistles and really wooing the media to like something else? Is it the swag bag? What is it that's going to get people, to reach their goal, and then coming up with the programs to try to make that happen? But as I said, some things you can guarantee. I can guarantee that we'll work our tails off. We'll be there 24/7, and we will do our best to achieve this. I can't guarantee your course will make the top 100 or that your golf pro is going to be teacher of the year, but we can work on a strategy to help move that forward. To
put those wheels in motion.
Right.
To if we don't get there, we'll eventually get there.
Right, but the one thing people have to keep in mind, be it our clients or a small business owner or a teaching professional, it's not a stop-start. It's not a throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. It's got to be a strategy that's thought out. And like you mentioned earlier, you got to stick with it. It's baby steps. It's not like the long jump. It's just boom, boom, little steps. I mean, and the hardest thing to do, and I know this, is to do, to do it for yourself. I mean, we've taken this time of COVID to. We struck a relationship with an agency we've worked with for years. They do the advertising side, so we're not competitors. And we did a trade, and they're redoing our website for us right now. Nice. Well, it's so hard to do your own website, right? And,
well, I found out, because I've done it a couple of them a number of times, mm-hmm. and it's not so much the content that's the difficulty; it's the artistic side mm-hmm. of you're never happy. You're constantly changing positionings and. No, I don't like that, and move this around.
And to what we discussed earlier, less is more. So on our old site, we had all sorts of content. It's still live at the moment. So, but we are probably have a third now of what we used to have, and we're pivoting our messaging a little bit as we become more refined in what we do. And as much as, say, we'd like to compete against, say, top hospitality PR firms or representing destinations, we know that our sweet spot lies in golf. And as I said, so many of our clients have some element of golf. So I'm not going to fight it. Let's go with it. It's worked for this long. But it's I won't say it's self-realization, but hey, let's showcase that element of what we do because, that's what we're known for. There aren't many of us out in the industry who specialize in this arena.
I want to get your opinion on something because you have offices all over the country in different regions, and so many people that I talk to might have a myopic view of the golf industry based off what part of the country they're from. So if you talk to some people, they say that the industry as a whole is still way down from the credit fallout a decade ago. And some people say, no, it's doing okay, or it's coming back. And talking to Susie Whaley when she was on the show, they're doing a lot of things to promote junior golf, which I think the PGA missed when carts were taking over caddy programs. What do you see in the golf industry? And then kind of the follow-up would be, and then what effect is COVID having? As we talked a little earlier, it's getting kids out to play, but as an industry-wide.
Well, I think to answer the second part first, while right now they say golf, because of COVID and being an acceptable sport, there's been this resurgence. I'm not sure if that's a blip or not. I do believe particularly maybe the courses that are single owner or maybe municipality. I think there are some courses in peril. I think it's part of a natural cycle where either the land values around them or just the populations change where they can't sustain themselves. It costs too much, right? I mean, just to maintain a course is expensive, yes. Right? And there's a big labor issue in this country to find the people who are willing to work that hard outside in the elements. Tim and I talk about it all the time. It's probably the number one challenge in his profession on the agronomic side is finding labor, which is typically 50% of a budget. But back to the industry as a whole, I think there's a certain segment, particularly on the very wealthy side, these private clubs, that economic ups and downs, presidential elections, pandemics, they're always going to be robust. Sometimes maybe not as robust as others, but there's a club in Monterey that has a multi-year waiting list still. I mean, but I still see it as probably flat. I think I know right now play volumes are up and our clients the courses are open are doing really, really well. But, there's some ingenuity required right now because of the golf cart situation. We have one client that's actually created a vinyl partition out of marine grade vinyl, and somehow it attaches inside the roof. And so two people can still ride in a cart. Pretty clever by PGA pros who own the company. They, right away reacted and came up with something. I love seeing people walk. I mean, here where I live, we live on a golf course, and for months it's been one day one course is open, the other day the other, and then we have closed, and it's helped both the conditions. I think it's given them chance, but I just love seeing people walking. Pulling pulling a cart, carrying a golf bag. I'd love to see more of that, but on the other hand, I have a father who's 86-year-old and still plays twice a week, and he has a rule. He'll only take a cart if it goes over 100 degrees out in California. But he's got one of those little electric carts that walks behind him. So, but I do think that there was some flatlining of golf for a long time. There are dips and whatnot. I think the PGA's come up with some cool programs with the leagues, the junior leagues. League, yeah. Right. Top Golf made a big splash. It became the hot thing for a couple of years. Now I'm not so sure with the social distancing and whatnot, whether or not that's going to be able to be maintained. I sure hope it all comes back around because I think that was a fun way for people to get engaged. I'm not sure that spawned new players into the game, but it was still a fun way to at least put a club in people's hands.
You know, you almost can't say. I mean, golf has survived over time, and it's hard to say, looking at a 10 or 12 year period, well, it's down, so the game's in trouble. Well, if you look at 100 years, okay, it might be down from where it was, but it overall it's still on a steady incline.
Yeah, I don't see it in trouble, not by any means. I think there's too many people invested in the game, too many smart people who. I see cycles of, who's the favorite child, right? Like Topgolf, right? Then this year at the show, it was all about CBD. I think there were 10 CBD vendors at the golf merchandise show. But seriously, I think it was all about technology, right? And all these different apps and things you could use to, I could play you and I would be in California and we would be having a match and we'd be on an app and all that stuff. That doesn't interest me, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who think that's fun. Or, what I've seen a lot lately are these organizations that provide access to private clubs for people who join. So you join this organization and then they get you access to places you might not normally be able to set a foot through the door.
Yeah, there was a guy here that tried to start that years ago.
Yeah, but now there's 3 or 4 of them and they seem fairly active. And what they're doing though is they're using website platforms, commerce, where they're also offering certain levels of equipment and apparel that exclusive to members. Even the Golfers Journal, which was the magazine I talked about earlier, they're doing little tournaments. They have formed something called the Broken Tea Society, and they've got tournaments, and now they've got apparel with the logo. So there's a lot of spin-off, but just through this Clubs Help organization, I've been exposed to some clubs I hadn't previously, and they're just following their regular cycles. Florida clears out come June, July, and then the members will come back toward the fall. And I mean, I think what we still need to do, there hasn't been a Tiger in a while. I mean, I thought for 5 minutes maybe Jordan was going to entice because he came out so hot.
Right.
And that's
He
kind of
played
faded
so well,
a bit.
yeah.
But, you get someone like Tiger is like a Michael Jordan. I mean, they don't come along
once in
that
a generation,
often,
maybe.
Arnie, I mean, I had the good fortune of working with Mr. Palmer on a couple different projects, opening the Arnold Palmer Center for Golf History at the USGA, and then his induction into the West Penn Golf Hall of Fame. And he was just like, I can see why he had an army, right? He was just a wonderful man, and you don't have the Jacks and the Arnies and the Tigers. I mean, I hope in my lifetime we see another one who comes along, because it'd be really fun to just ride that wave again.
Do you think that's the biggest challenge that golf faces right now, is not having that?
Yeah, unfortunately.
That Pied Piper?
Yeah, and especially when they take their hats and stuff off. I wouldn't recognize them if I ran into them at Starbucks. I mean, there's this whole group. I mean, obviously there's some who are distinctive, but there's a lot of vanilla, that and I know that's wrong to say, but they're so skilled at what they do. They're in the top, 0.10% of the, they're so good. And there's so much competition, but they're just, from a personality standpoint, there's not a lot of that, and Tiger's a one word. He's like Cher, it's like a one word person. I mean, that's pretty, he's transcended sport. I mean, for all his foibles and everything, it was, everyone knows who you're talking about.
Yeah, and doesn't have, even if they're not in the sport.
Right, exactly.
Kids, and they know exactly who you're talking about.
But, I say the same about golf in a way. I feel like golf has transcended sport too. It's become a lifestyle, right? I always credit Rene Russo and Tin Cup for jazzing it up a little with those cool outfits and stuff. But people buy homes in golf communities, or they dress a certain way, or, there's fundraisers, but people, there's like a golf buddy trips, right? Or bucket list destinations, or we've worked with some high-end golf tour companies that, either one that just only did by water, Kalos Golf, which were cruises on these wonderful ships, or, tour operators that create, people every year would go on these golf excursions, South Africa or Australia, New Zealand, or Ireland, Scotland. I mean, it became a way of life to add on to your, not only did you belong to a club or play the game or try to master the game, you dressed the role, you lived in the community, and you traveled to the places. So you look at the economic impact of golf, it's extensive.
Quite expansive,
yeah.
It is for individuals, what would be the, let's say, 1 to 3 things that everybody should be doing to better market themselves?
From a marketing standpoint?
Either mostly as an individual who's looking to whatever, if they're trying to go, if they have a small business and they're trying to go from 400,000 in sales to $1 million, or if they're a coach and they, like we talked about earlier, they want to become in the top 100, or they're a head professional and they want to get to a top 100 club, or what have you. What would you say the 1 to 3 things that everybody should be doing?
Well, know your brand, right? Are you a luxury brand? Are you a teacher of the short game? Are you someone who's noted for cultivating talent and working with kids? What's your brand? Have your I statement, ready. What is it that I represent? What is it my business is known for? As I mentioned, Hunter PR is known for its relationships. We bring people together, be it media to destinations or products in the hands of influencers. We connect people, right? So if you're a teacher, know what's your specialty. What are your mantra, right? And have that. Everything you do should go back to, it's almost like this, your touch point. If I buy an ad in, let's just say, this magazine locally, is that going to reach my audience? And does my ad look like my brand, right? So, but would I be better off buying ads in these 4 school newsletters that reach the parents because I'm a kids coach? And is that a better use of my money? And should I volunteer to coach the girls' golf team and take a day a week to do things that are going to support your brand? Do the community thing in your community. I'm not necessarily saying it has to be here in Hilton Head. It could be in the volunteering in your travel writers association or your alumni association. I did my 6 years on my alumni association board, and it was hugely gratifying. I loved it, and I loved being on campus and seeing the kids. And heck, who wouldn't love to go to La Jolla in February when you lived in New Jersey? But give back in some way, because I think that just, first of all, you're appreciated, but it also makes you appreciate what you have or don't have. Know the brand, and then communication, which to me is the essence of everything. It's an essence of a good relationship, a marriage, how you talk to the outside world. And communication takes on many forms, be it the written word, be it a social media post, be it a digital emailer to your database.
Right.
Yeah, all of that. So those would be the 3 key things.
I'd say that most people couldn't and should be able to do those things.
I know.
On a regular basis.
Exactly.
And it gives them a start, right? Like we talked about, at least, okay, that will lead to something else, and then they can expand from there. And
sure.
They probably learn a lot about themselves, especially the communication.
Yeah, but then there's always procrastination and, all the other things that work against you, right?
Yeah, and I think there was a study some number of years ago I was reading somewhere that there was a group that they were tasked with trying to figure out this problem by figuring it out. And then there's another group who was tasked with, okay, figure it out any way you can. Yeah. And trial, your trial and error in this group, you have to figure it out. Well, the trial and error group got it done something like 5 times faster.
Oh, really?
Because they didn't get
caught up in them.
Yes, and they went and did something. So yeah, procrastination maybe. I think if you understand why you're procrastinating is another big thing. If you're doing it because you're nervous or scared, well, you're going to have to make the leap.
Well, it's dip the toe in the water, right? Try it.
If you want to get where you want, where your goal is set, then you're going to have to overcome those things. I think all those things make everybody better as people, in addition to learning more about their craft.
Sure. And, sometimes it's intimidation because you're fearful, right? One of the few RFPs we ever put in for was to represent the city of San Antonio for golf, to position them as a golf destination. Mm-hmm. And, we were the little guy, right? And we knew we were up against these big agencies. And I was worried about the quality of our graphics or where our strategies were going to be correct and all that. And then I thought about it. I go, wait a minute. We know what we're doing. We're really good at this. And, if someone is going to get hired because they had bells and whistles and dancing girls to give their presentation, fine, go work with them. But I'll be here when you call me later because,
right. They all come back.
And we ended up, as an aside, I called it the pillow talk strategy, is how we got the account. And it was because the president of the deciding organization happened to be married to a PR person who represented other properties not in San Antonio. But she and we knew the same media. So I said to all my media buddies, I said, you're going to be my best endorsers. Would you mind putting in a good word for us with her? And, sure enough, we were shortlisted, and then we ended up, but I called it, you just whisper in his ear at night that Hunter PR, they're really good. And we ended up getting the project, and we worked for 3 years, and then he left there and went to another bureau, and we worked with him again. But that goes back to the relationships, right? And not being intimidated by what might be out there. So, there's a really good golf professional down the street, and there's another good one at this resort, but I'm good too. And I know what I'm doing, and I know that kids really, seem to react well when I tell them and teach them, and they pick it up, and they seem to have fun, and they leave with smiles on their face. So how can I package and market that? I'm the kids coach, make it my brand, right? And push that out there, and then be seen in those situations where if you're the coach of the team or you're volunteering at Special Olympics with the golf kids, do it. That was probably one of the most gratifying weeks of my life. I was a national volunteer for Special Olympics golf. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, those kids were good. And young adults. But my favorite thing was we had on the national committee, we had an athlete on our committee. So we got, Marty's perspective of, he was actually a golfer and a weightlifter participating
cool.
in the Special Olympics games. And my other thing there, I went to the gym in the hotel one morning. It was at Duke in Prestonwood. I can't even remember what year it was, but I go to the gym and there's this smallish man working out. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Who probably, he's not that tall, right? But he had bigger biceps than I did. But, the Kennedy family had been very involved in Mrs. Shriver in the formation of the Special Olympics. So I think he was there representing the family. Or he just wanted to work out with me or something.
You want to do some rapid fire and then we can kind of wrap up?
Sure. One more thing I was going to just mention that just the power of using some of these tools we talked about. How I found my trainer here was I picked up, one of the throwaway newspapers that comes, or you find them. And I was just reading, I don't even know where I was. And there was an article about, are you in a rut with your workouts? And it was an authored article. Chad Cannon had written it. And it was basically saying, you know what, in a half-hour workout, I can get your heart rate up. And you're not going to be on the elliptical for 30 minutes. We're going to break it up and we're going to do these, the high intensity, the intervals. But he explained it so well. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Because yes, I was in a rut. And yes, I went to the same machine every day at the same gym and got on it for 30 minutes and then went and did whatever. And So I called him and had an appointment, and I asked him how it worked, and I didn't know it was him. I thought, I thought he had this giant enterprise, and he goes, "No, you work with me. You'll meet with me." I'm like, "Oh, okay," but it was A, he took the initiative to write and place the article. B, I happened to read it. Like you said, you never know where people, and I drove by, I saw where it was, and but it took effort on my part, but it took effort on his. Things just don't.
Being resourceful.
Yeah, they don't magically land in your lap all the time. Right?
No, and this podcast is an example. I think you're the 23rd interview, and it was
oh my gosh,
I got to a point, and I didn't procrastinate. I just didn't know how to get started, and I said, well, how am I going to get these people? And I've been very happily surprised that. I mean, it's had some very big names on it, and when you write to them, they're more than happy to help if they have the time.
Well, and I think the way you posture it, it's a conversation. Mm-hmm. I mean, podcasts are a hot commodity right now. And I think particularly since COVID, I think there have been more people who've dipped their toe in the water to try it and see. Also, I've noticed a lot of live Instagram.
Yes, conversations.
Yeah. And even particularly in the past couple of months, workouts, different media outlets, different people doing free workouts, free downloads of things that might normally cost. We're going to give you an opportunity. Even the media, I know the Charleston paper during COVID has allowed unlimited reads, where normally they would charge you after 3. They're letting people read. But I mean, I think it's, as people don't waste as much time commuting and are going to be working at home, I think they're going to have time to expand their horizons a little, be it reading different types of outlets or listening to podcasts. I know, we were talking earlier about the different channels where you can find podcasts.
Right.
And all the different platforms. I mean, I've learned a lot just listening to a few, but, it's now with some of these other platforms like radio.com. Tim and I listen to New York radio still. At night, we'll hear just through the stations we used to listen to when we lived in the Northeast come through the internet. It's one way to hear the traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike.
Everything is definitely nationwide or worldwide now.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
Yeah. Well, when you said that your listeners are all over the world, I mean, that's kind of freaky when you think about it, right?
Yeah, it really is weird to look at a map of the entire world and say, okay, there's somebody in Brazil that has listened, and I don't look at the counts, or there's somebody in Russia who listened. Like, wow, that's,
and
never would have guessed.
Yeah,
but
and then in what we do, as I've mentioned, we travel around with the media. But I did take, it was within, I think, 2 weeks after Matthew, I had already booked. I had 20 media. I was taking them to Seoul, South Korea. Oh, we had a course there about an hour and a half outside of the city. And I said to Tim, I've got to go. I can't, just leave these people in the lurch. And we had, our house with trees in it and all sorts of stuff going on. So, but, to go to different parts of the world and see how they embrace different things. Like they love golf in South Korea. And it's a very cherished commodity because it's only for the very, very wealthy, and it's hard to find the land and the wealth to belong to the clubs. So, it's kind of an elite thing. But then they've got these multi-tiered driving ranges. So one of our experiences we showcased for the media was to go to one of those places where the driving ranges were on 3 levels and you're hitting balls, but then to watch them react to some cultural differences. The female caddies over there are like well-dressed Pan Am airline stewardesses from the 60s. I mean, matching suit coat and skirt and scarf, and they checked every club and they took all these notes before the guys even, set foot on the first tee. I mean, so it's, it's fun to see golf in other places too. Mm-hmm. We had a client over in Scotland for a while, and that's the home of golf. So it's that part of what I do is fun. I think that's just to see how the sport is perceived in other places. I mean, Robert Trent Jones, he's got work all over the world. Most of his active new builds are, Vietnam, Los Cabos, Ecuador, Singapore. They're, I think about the miles I've put on, and Bobby's probably got me 3 ways to Sunday. Oh my gosh, yeah. For an 80-year-old guy, it's pretty amazing.
Keeps him busy and out of trouble. All right, I got 10 of them here.
Okay.
So we'll go through them.
I've been warned about this. Can I get my wine first?
They won't be very difficult.
Okay.
So the Ryder Cup started the walk-up songs a couple years ago.
Okay.
So what would your walk-up song be?
Oh, it's
first tee.
Oh. Well, there's one that Tim has as his ringtone, the Doors song he has for me, but I have to come up with my own, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's got to be some Lady Gaga song, so let me get back to you on that one.
Okay, easy enough. Caddy or cart?
Cart.
I thought you said you like to walk.
I like to walk, but I don't want a caddy messing with my stuff. Can I just walk without a caddy? That
Sure.
would be my preference.
You can have the cart that follows you.
Yes, exactly.
The remote control.
Yes.
If you could have anybody swing in history, whose would it be?
Ernie Els.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, the Big Easy.
Best course you ever played?
Well, it's the course I know best of any, like the back of my hand, is Pebble Beach.
I would probably say that would.
But I was involved in, where did the portalets go? And where did the hospitality tents go? And where are the grandstands? So over 2 years, I just came to know that one so well. But so I'll stick with that.
What is your superpower?
Strong. In many ways.
Okay. If they made a movie about your life, who would play you?
Susan Sarandon.
Okay. Biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve. Oh boy. Bad smells.
Last book you read?
Oh gosh, I read 2 at a time. It was the new Jojo Moyes book, and I can't remember the name of it.
What was it about?
It was
fiction.
It was fiction, but it actually topic appropriate. It was a juxtaposition between a slave girl and who had earned her freedom, but she needed to get to the point to get the deed, and a modern era school teacher,
Mm-hmm.
And basically how their lives got intertwined by the acts of the slave girl winning her freedom and the school teacher digging back into the archives as a history lesson for her students. It brought it all intertwined at the end, which is, I like the books that kind of take you on parallel tracks, distances, and then in the end it all makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And the last one, this one goes to everybody. Greatest of all time, Tiger or Jack?
Probably Jack.
Knowing
that I work with him, but
that question is about 50-50.
Is it?
Usually goes to era that somebody
well,
watched
that
golf
makes
in.
sense. I guess I look at the whole. I'll tell you, the greatest of all time in my book is Barbara Nicholas. She is one heck of a woman.
Very unheralded.
Oh, I often judge events and successes and people by the aftermath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you suffer from post-event depression because you work for 2 years and all of a sudden it's done. And there's
Now
that. But after the Champions reunion at Pebble, one of the things we did for that was we did a photo of all of them, like an Annie Leibovitz-esque. It was on the cover of a magazine called Golf Journal, and it was a trifold. And so we had it all, we had it waiting to go because we only had 20 minutes to get all of them in position. Boom, shoot. Well, in the meantime, all the wives are hanging there. Barbara said, "Come on, girls, let's take our own picture." She got them all up on the steps of the beach club. She got it all organized, and got a picture of all the women, which was, that's the den mother, right? The mom,
Right.
the grandma, the great grandma, and her. And she wrote hand wrote a thank you note saying what a lovely evening and thank you on her Barbara Nicholas cards. I'm thinking, you wrote me. You were the one who, filled a void for these gals while they were waiting, as they probably are wont to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward to last fall, we reopened Great Waters at Reynolds, and Barbara came with Jack. Well, it was the fastest ride around he had ever done because she was with him, right? And she was so gracious. He was in such good humor. He answered every single media question, and we had about 40 media there.
Wow.
He did every sidebar interview. He did a video thing for us for golf.com. He was terrific, but she's just such a calming influence. And then, look at the clock, got to go. Off they went to Texas. I can't remember if it was he or she who was receiving an award that night in Dallas, but I mean, she's just so gracious and so hospitable and charitable. And of all things, she even remembered working with me before.
Amazing, isn't it?
Thinking the thousands of people she meets in a given month, I kind of think now, okay, he's 80. He's probably in a risk position with his, from this pandemic. They've probably been hanging out in West Palm, but yet he recorded a video for us for Club's Help. I know he did some other things for the USGA. Our headwear company has a special issue hat, Bear Cares, with a little golden bear icon and the heart and a mask that's raising money for the Children's Hospital. So, even right now, he's getting ready for 2 back-to-back weeks at Muirfield in July. I got to hand it to him.
Stays active.
Yeah. So, Tiger still has to show me some more. If you come back in 10 years with the 10th question.
He's got time to go.
Exactly.
If someone wanted to reach out to you, they wanted to bring you in to consult, they wanted to hire you, get you to speak.
Just call my agent, Pete Popovich. Yeah. 103 Pete, right?
Yeah. What's the best way that they can reach you?
Just call my cell phone. That's the phone I use, and I'm happy I talk to anyone. I've had this week. This is an aside, but let me give you the number. It's 908, which is a New Jersey area code, yes, even though we're in Hilton Head, 963-6013. And just so everyone knows, there's several Hunter PRs in this country. So there's a very large one in New York, but the key on ours is it's hunter-pr.com. So the little dash has to be there. Otherwise, you'll get to one of the largest PR firms in the country, and I bet they'll be a little more expensive than we are.
I'll make sure all those links are in the summary in the description, too, so someone can just click on it. You don't have to.
But talk about having your cell phone out there. I'm on the pretty much 80% of the press releases that go out. I use that number just because my job is 24/7.
Right.
And, this past week, there was a destination wedding planned for one of our resort clients, and the groom is really unhappy. So he was the first call, followed by a long email because they were, the resort's been closed. They've been trying to get information. No one's answering him. There's a language barrier. I understand. And I'm thinking, okay, the bride is so distraught. She had the groom call me. Well, yesterday it was the father of the bride, and he's texting me, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Get everybody.
I'm writing my client going, help. I said, you got to get me out of the middle of this one. And I explained nicely to him. I said, I do the media relations, and I'm going to get you to someone who can help you resolve the situation for the wedding that's next week. But
oh boy.
You know what? As long as you're responsive and try to come up with a solution or at least a route to a solution, then I feel like I've done my job. But
And social media handles? Are you on social media?
yeah, all of them are HPR, Hunter Public Relations, Pebble Beach. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So it's capital HPR and then Pebble Beach. And then I have my own handles, are all just at Karen Moraghan.
Which one do you want people to go to?
I like Hunter PR is good from a business standpoint.
Okay.
If they want to see my scrapbooking.
You can follow her there and learn more about marketing and how to do it for your business or yourself. Karen, it's been great. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of people are going to, hopefully they take your advice on what to do to market and
just stick
themselves.
with it. Taking that first step is the hardest, right?
Yes. Once you get it going, it
should be a well-oiled machine.
That's right. This has been great. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up again on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's Paradigm, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.